The 2021 North Carolina Republican Party convention has begun, and I'm here to report to you on the events of the Friday afternoon business session. Now, let me just say this. Enthusiasm within the Republican Party, at least here in North Carolina, is great. It's through the roof. It's going to conventions in the past, starting on Friday afternoon. Parking has been a little too easy, but this year I actually had to go to the very, very way back corner of the convention center complex and find a parking spot. It hasn't been as easy as it's been in years past. Now, this year I decided to not attend the Friday morning breakout sessions. I looked at the topics. One was, I think, on data center, and the other one was on strategies on reaching minority voters. Things that I've already had breakout sessions on, and honestly, the topics just, especially that early in the convention weekend, is just not stuff I find particularly interesting. So I just decided to relax Friday morning. I did not sleep in. I actually got up at 7, listened to Henry Hinton on his Talk of the Town radio show. He was broadcasting live from the Hilton there at the convention center here in Greenville. Listened to his show for a couple hours. Watched TV for a while. Went over to Cracker Barrel around 10:30, 11 o'clock. That place was jammed. I thought, it was today is Friday, right? It looked like a Saturday or Sunday morning over there. It was jammed. Crazy, but I got my food, brought it back, watched a little more TV, went out to the convention complex, and I will say, first impressions of the convention center, it stinks. Not literally, but more the hallways are very narrow to begin with, and then you put all your vendors out there on the hallway. It makes traffic among 1,300 delegates just trying to move around the complex is very hard, and then you have a delegate who wants to have a conversation in the hallway. It's impossible to move sometimes. It's crazy. And the convention hall itself is the worst convention hall that, not just me, but Dan Forrest actually called the kettle black on this. He says the worst space for a political convention he's ever been to. He's probably been to a few more than I have. This is my number 7 for me, and I don't know how many it is for Mr. Forrest, but probably a few more than that. Double, probably, at least. The convention hall, it's like a U shape. It's like a trapezoid, one of those freaky shapes that you don't remember because it was from 9th grade geometry class, which for me is 20 years ago now. So, but anyway, one good thing I will say is that I do like my hotel. The location of it is wonderful. It's like a 2 or 3 minute drive from here to the convention center. Getting a place to eat is very easy. Lots of restaurants in the immediate area. I can even walk to a couple of them if I like. So that aspect is good. So get into the convention hall, and about 10 minutes before the convention starts, they start playing some videos. One was from Bo Hines, who's congressional candidate running against Virginia Fox out in the northwestern part of the state. Then there's a video from Ronna McDaniel, RNC chair, and then there's a video of Sherry Lynn Womack run for state vice chair. So our call to order was at 2:05 p.m., just 5 minutes late. There's been some conventions that have started 15, 20 minutes late, so we were 5 minutes late. It's not too bad. Chairman Watley started on his welcome, his chairman's speech. He repeated a lot of things I've already heard, and I've already broadcast to you, the audience, before, but I will hit some new highlights. He says in 2020, the North Carolina Republican Party won 15 out of 19 election victories. This is state and federal combined. Also, just today, he announced the formation of an election integrity committee. This is going to be a statewide committee looking at basically, make sure elections have integrity and there's no fraud taking place, all that kind of thing. This is going to mirror an operation that's already been ongoing for the last several months from the RNC. And I was very happy to see Billy Miller, again, is the convention chairman. Michelle Nix is the secretary up there, a friend of mine. And A.J. Dowd, for the first time in probably 3 or 4 years, is back as Sergeant in Arms. And I'm thrilled about that because he's a good Sergeant in Arms. He's always walking around and directing people, make sure people are misbehaving in the convention hall. And he's always, this year he hasn't said it, but his catchphrase is always, take your seats, take your seats. Next speaker on the day was from the 3rd District, the U.S. House, Dr. Greg Murphy. By the way, this Greenville is in the central part of his congressional district, if you do not know that already. Most of you probably do. His first opening statement was, why would we ever pay people to stay home? I agree, that's crazy. 3rd District has the best barbecue in the state. I'm not sure about that. It is, the vinegar-based barbecue is pretty tasty. Personally, I like my vinegar a little bit more sweet and a little bit more tomatoey, so I'm more probably a little lean Western style North Carolina barbecue, but Eastern is good, okay? It's good. Yeah, calm down, y'all. It's good. But Western's a little bit better, okay? Sorry. I also talked about our beautiful beaches and coastline of North Carolina. Yeah, that's pretty true also. Florida's might be a tad... Okay, I'll shut up. No, okay, seriously, though, he's talked about the border being a humanitarian crisis. I agree. Joe Biden has been a nothing man on the border. And he also says, look, if H.R. 1 passes, H.R. 1 is this huge election reform bill that's going through, that passed the Democratic majority U.S. House. Hopefully not going to pass the Senate. Don't think it's going to pass the Senate, but if it does, Dr. Greg Murphy says we can forget having political conventions because there'll be no shot at all for Republicans to win ever again nationally or even in federal elections because there'll be one-party Democratic rule. Okay, so now 2:20. It's 2:20 in the afternoon, and we get our first little change in the business session. In years past, what has happened is the delegates, including yours truly, and the state party has always put out 2 different agendas for delegates to follow. One is just your general agenda. A general agenda just says, okay, Friday afternoon from 2 to 6, we're going to have the business session, and then dinner is going to be at 6:30 or 7, and then reconvene time is 9 o'clock Saturday morning for the morning business session, etc., etc. The other agenda is your actual agenda of a particular afternoon or morning's business session. So you would have, okay, who's speaking during this session, who's speaking during Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, who's speaking then. And generally, what will happen is you'll have, you'll have that kind of agenda. During each particular business session, you will know for a fact who's going to be speaking when. But this year, the party has not done that. I have no idea why. Hopefully next year they'll get back to doing it the way they used to do it. And another thing too, this is not necessarily a point of contention with me, but for a lot of the other delegates, is in years past, the state party has put in the actual program booklet for the convention where and when all the hospitality suites are going to be. Now, I don't go to the hospitality suites. I did one year, realized it was not my thing. After the afternoon business session, I go back to my hotel room, I have dinner, and I call it a night pretty much. And I do this YouTube show. But that's another thing that's happened. But this year is even more different because in years past, you would start off with a boatload of speakers on Friday afternoon. And then maybe by 5 o'clock Friday afternoon, 3 or 4 hours later, you're finally getting around to business. This year they did something different. It's as if it's as if the state party decided to put the convention on like an iPod shuffle, because at 2:20 in the afternoon, just after 15 minutes of hearing speeches from candidates, elected officials, party officials, at 2:20 p.m. we actually had a credentials report. That's probably the earliest we've ever had a credentials report. Okay, so we had credentials. And our delay for verifying credentials, this was also unprecedented and different, was 3 minutes. In years past, it's been up to an hour or even an hour and a half, where the convention has grinded to a halt because the credentials have not been in order. But this year, guess what happened? Everyone who wanted to attend the convention, whether it be as a delegate, alternate, or guest, had to register at least a week before the convention date. That gave the opportunity for the credentials committee to make sure everything was in order, even before getting to Greenville on Friday. Very good. Okay, and also should be noted that when Billy Miller asked his annual question, one that he asks every convention, he always says, how many people in the convention hall? This is your very first convention. This year, a record number of people raised their hand. Now, one of my friends, John Stewart, said on Facebook it's probably about half. I would say half would be very good. I think it's probably more about 33 to 38% of the people are new. That's still very, very impressive, though, to have that many new people at a convention. Okay, next, though, we go back to the speeches. So we go speeches, business, credentials for a few minutes, then we go back to speeches. Personally, I kind of like this new format a little bit, because in years past, the problem is that it's at every single business session. Like, for example, on a Friday, you'll start about 2 o'clock. You don't get to business. You have to go through credentials, do all that stuff. If you're lucky, you'll get to business by about 5, and by 6 o'clock, people will be ready to go home or go to dinner. Saturday morning, again, boatload of speeches. Then maybe you get an hour of business. This is new, and I kind of like it. You do a few speeches, then you do a little business. Do speeches, do a little business. Kind of mix it up a bit, and I think it keeps people more engaged. It helps the convention move along a little bit faster, maybe, but also helps keep the convention interesting, so you're not hearing speech after speech after speech. Last year at the virtual convention, it was awful. You had speech after speech after speech, and I think I even found myself falling asleep after just a couple hours, to be honest with you. It was crazy. But at this moment, we had a speech from Zoe Headland, who is the chair of the College Republicans of North Carolina. Very good, passionate speech. Says, look, politics affects everyone, and we're trying, as she is, as the chair of the College Republicans, reach out to every college student, whether or not they be political or not, because guess what? Politics affects everyone. High gas prices. Guess what happened? Biden cancels the Keystone Pipeline, and just last week he said we're stopping drilling in Anwar. Guess what? Gas prices go up. You might not be political, but guess what? Because of Biden's policies, gas prices keep going up, right? When Trump was president, they went down because Trump embraced drilling in Anwar. He embraced building pipelines, common sense, right? Then we had a speech from our friend Catherine Whiteford, chair of the YRs. They have made tremendous strides here in the last year. In 2020, they made 1.1 million voter contacts. They helped flip 2 seats in the state legislature from Democrat to Republican. And out of the 10 races they helped with, they won 8 of them. That's a very good record right there, 8-2. Also, they're sending the second largest delegation in the country to the National Young Republican Convention, and the second only to Texas. Then we heard from Dale Folwell, who got a standing ovation, rightfully so, because he's been absolutely awesome as treasurer. But he said that, look, because of the legislature's work during the semester, or semester being the last 10 years, the state legislature has passed the final exam no one saw coming, which is COVID, because of having the rainy day fund. And he said, look, North Carolina is one of the most stable fiscally in the USA. Also, he's saying, look, we got to push power from the bureaucrats to the consumer when it comes to health care. It's a real shame that these contracts that the health care companies have between them and the physicians are in secret. And it's sort of like if you go to a store and you buy a bottle of Pepsi, their cost is based on whether you pay with the Visa card or a MasterCard. That's how healthcare is, unfortunately, in North Carolina, and Dale Folwell's fighting to make that better. Also, he talked about his favorite website, nccash.com. $1 million has been given away to churches with unclaimed cash. $7,000 was returned to the coffers of the city of Greenville, and $13,000 to the city of Charlotte. Also, baby teeth, silver teeth, and fake teeth have been returned to citizens of North Carolina, along with World War II medals have also been returned. And finally, Dale Folwell said, 1 year ago he was given a 20% chance of life because he was suffering terribly from COVID. But it's really amazing that God could keep Dale Folwell alive and keep him, and now he's healthy again because of God's grace. Amen. Then we heard from Pat Smith, the chairwoman of the NC Federation of Republican Women. Believe it or not, there are 2,300 members of this organization statewide, and it's the third largest delegation of Republican women behind just California and Texas. Okay, now we get to probably the most interesting part of this afternoon's business session, and that is the report of the Rules Committee, okay? And it should be noted that, let me see, you get the booklet real quick. Okay. So, what the Rules Committee made some last-minute rules changes that were not originally reported in the Rules Committee report that I gave to you about a month ago. One of the rules was the registration deadline was pushed from May 23rd to June 1st. Another one was the one about the elections for party officers should be done by electronic ballot. And then nominations for chair and vice chair need to be made prior to May 28th. Okay. Now those were the proposed changes from the gentleman on the Rules Committee. I believe his last name was Edwards. Let's see what his first name was. Mark Edwards. So Mark Edwards proposed these changes, but then a guy by the name of Daniel Berry, who's a great Republican, former chairman of Union County, also big supporter of our buddy Jim Womack for chairman 2 years ago, who unsuccessfully ran against Michael Whatley. But Whatley's done a really good job in his tenure as chair. He's running for re-election and is probably going to be voted in without opposition, which I would hope because he's done a really good job. And he even came by and said hi to me. I don't think he even knew. I thought he didn't know who he was, but apparently he does. But okay, back to this rules changes here. Our hero of today is Daniel Berry because he made some very good rules changes. The first one was, okay, Rule 6B. Okay. He wanted to strike Rule A and B. Motions to amend a report of the Rules, Plan of Organization, Platform, and Resolutions Committee shall not be in order unless the motion is made to the North Carolina Republican Party prior to 5 p.m. on May 23rd, 2021. A motion to amend a report of the Rules, Plan of Organization, Platform, Resolutions Committee shall be adopted by 2/3 vote of all votes cast. So the problem with this one is Rule 6, according to Berry, is it limits debate and participation. Yep. The purpose of a convention is to do business, and this would really severely limit that because people could not be able to debate these changes. They will not be able to propose amendments either. Another one was Rule 11. Rule 11 is striking the first sentence, which is saying nominations for chair and vice chair need to be made prior to May 28th. Well, that takes out all the, I think one of the people speaking in favor says, look, it takes out all the spontaneity of the convention, all the, the good, entertaining part of the convention, I think somebody said. Let's see, but the Chairman Edwards said he was opposed to Daniel Berry's rules changes because he thinks they respect the rights of the virtual people, which I can kind of see that. But one thing I disagreed with him was that he said Saturday afternoon they have a hard deadline to get done by 5:30 to accommodate President Trump, but actually in all the previous conventions that I've been to, the convention can only be dismissed one of two ways: by the convention chairman, who is not Mark Edwards, Billy Miller, or through a quorum call that falls short. In other words, if your quorum is the number of delegates that need to be present to conduct business. So if there are 1,300 delegates at this convention, quorum in the NCGOP is 50% plus one. So you need 651 delegates present on the floor of the convention in order to do business. If somebody makes a quorum call, if you call a quorum and there's only 592 delegates, you don't have quorum and the convention automatically stops. But those are only two ways a convention can ever end. Okay, oh yeah, and then we have our buddy Steve Radner, who I've actually had on the last few conventions. He's excellent. I mean, I always agree with him pretty much everything he says. Steve Radner of Beaufort County says these rule changes are the most heavy-handed that he's ever witnessed, and he's been coming to the convention for like the last 50 years, since 1973 is what he said. Okay, 48 years, but you get my drift. And he says it's offensive to people in this room making motions and very top-down. Okay. Let's see. And next, Carl Miska, also in opposition. I love Carl Miska. He's been such a great chairman for District 3. He's probably my favorite in the whole state. He always kind of has little no-nonsense about him and just is always a little feisty. Kind of great sense of humor, though. Kind of reminds me of my late Pop-Pop a little bit. But today he went up to the microphone. He says, look, I oppose the entire rules report. Especially Rule 11, because he said it takes away spontaneity of the convention. Rule 11 would disallow somebody on the convention floor on Saturday from announcing they want to randomly run for chair or vice chair, you know. Rule 11 would take that away. Yeah, I mean, we think that Michael Whatley is going to get reelected without opposition, but you never know. And we always like to have that little bit of drama in there to keep things interesting, right? Okay, and next we heard from Lynette Ramsey of Caldwell County, also in support of the Daniel Berry rules changes. She says nobody who she talked to in her county or district was aware of that there was actually a deadline to propose changes to the reports. And she also says something that I agree with 110%, and that is a lot of people that go to the conventions, including yours truly, do not go to the conventions for the dinners. No, we just come for the business sessions because we want to do business. Okay. And then Larry Pittman, representative of the state legislature from Cabarrus County, says, look, I am in support of Daniel Berry's rules changes because a lot of times in a convention setting, fair participation is overlooked in favor of efficiency. So instead of having a full discussion on certain reports, you know, efficiency, you want to be efficient about getting people in and out of convention as quickly as possible. Okay, then we had a move previous question, which means debate on this stopped. And then, let's see. There was a joke. Billy Miller was talking to the virtual people. Said, you, sir, put some pants on. He said, if you're in favor of Daniel Berry's rules changes, you hit yes if you're virtual. If you're in the convention hall, you stand. And I stood up in support. 320 other people did too, and this passed by a margin of 321 to 12. A very, very close vote. And I was very pleased that my chairman, County Chairman David Gleason, and his wife also stood in support of this. And also Michael Whatley, State Chairman, stood up in support of these rules changes from the great Daniel Berry as well. Another thing I will say that kind of ticked me off, changing gears a little bit, something that ticked me off was that guests and visitors were not allowed in the convention hall until 3:30. Problem with that is convention started at 2, so they missed an hour and a half of convention action. And one of my good friends from Brunswick County, who used to live in the Wilmington area, then moved to Virginia, then moved down to Brunswick County, she was locked out of the convention hall basically until 3:30. That's ridiculous. You know, we need to find space to accommodate as many people as we possibly can at these conventions. And playing these country club parlor games is uncalled for. Terrible. Okay. Now we go back to more speakers, and we hear from U.S. Senate candidate Jen Banworth. And she had a quote from Tommy Lasorda, the difference between possible and impossible. and she used to be an NSH. And then we had Bob Pruitt from the NC Federation of Men, Republican Men, and then U.S. Senate candidate Marty Cook from Brunswick County, served 12 years on the county commission down there in Brunswick. He says, look, I'm tired of politicians who sit on their hands while the shit goes down. Yes, he actually said the S word there. Yes, while the S goes down. Then we heard from David Sawyer, chair of the District County Chairs Association, which is a spin-off organization of the NCGOP. It's for county chairs and district chairs. Said there's 45 new chairs, 45 new county chairs in the state, who they're trying to energize and get trained. So it's good to see some new leadership around the state. Our buddy Roger Farina ran for this post 2 years ago, but lost to the incumbent Kim Cotton West. And then I don't know if he decided to run again this year, but David Sawyers is a new chair. I have nothing against Kim Cotton West. She's done many good things for the party over the years. But again, it's always good. Give someone else a turn, right? And get some new blood, new ideas within the party, right? Okay, then we went back to business. We were talking about the platform committee. Okay, so there were a couple of just grammatical errors. There was an amendment that was repeated twice in the platform report. Another one was to strike homeschooling from education funding, which I agree with, because whatever the government funds, they ultimately want to watch, right? So if the government's going to give money to parents for homeschooling, they're going to want to know exactly what they're teaching their kids, and they're going to probably say, hey, you got to teach critical race theory because we gave you money. Yes, you got to teach it. That's a huge concern for myself and a lot of people. And then we had the word international added to treaties and organizations, to read treaties and international organizations. Somebody else wanted to change capitalism to free enterprise. That failed because one person first the motion, but we could not get a second person on the motion. I think that's a good thing, because to me, capitalism is just more of a basic, better to understand term than free enterprise, right? Then we had a video from Cathie Truitt, the state superintendent of public education. She said that she could not be at the convention because there's a wedding in her family. But she did have some good news. She pushed Governor Cooper to reopen all the schools. Originally, he just wanted to open the elementary schools, but no. Cathie Truitt ultimately pushed him to open the elementary, middle, and high schools. And then Truitt also helped pass Tim Moore's free summer school program. And she also said and promised that critical race theory will not be taught in the public schools of North Carolina. It's a very good thing. And actually, the state of Georgia, just a couple days ago, their state government said, no, we're not doing CRT either. Next, we heard from U.S. Senate candidate Kenneth Harper, who's a very passionate African-American, a very passionate speaker. This is his first time running. He's a small business owner, supports criminal justice reform. He said the GOP needs to return to its roots of freedom, and the Abe Lincoln fans, the Abe Lincoln Republicans, need to stand up and fight for the freedom. I agree. Clarence Henderson next spoke. He's with the Frederick Douglass Foundation. He says, look, we've got to fight for the underserved across America. And next we heard from Juan Cortez, vice chair of the NC Republican Hispanic Assembly. Gave a really good speech about his father. It was a death in a family. and he was going through poverty, and an elected official helped him, and it was Ted Alexander, who's a member of the state legislature, was a Republican, and there's this whole joke, there's this whole thing about, son, are you a Republican or Democrat? And Juan Cortez said, I'm a Republican. And Ted Alexander helped him with housing and that sort of thing. NC Commissioner of Labor Josh Dobson also spoke. And then we had Dan Forest, who, believe it or not, when he was run for governor last year, no media interviews were given. He never got interviewed by the media. Right? Crazy. I mean, you would think a statewide race for governor, a nominee of a major party, you would think he'd get at least one media interview, but apparently he did not. He also helped lead legislation for North Carolina to be the first state to reform free speech on college campuses and make these college campuses help them have more free speech. He also helped North Carolina high school students now required to take a financial literacy / economics course, and also computer science course as well. Also helped the legislation to stop human trafficking, and this is a big one. North Carolina became the first state in the country to have all public school K through 12 classrooms hooked up to broadband internet access. And Dan Forest also helped spearhead a first responders bill to help make 9/11 also a first responders day, a day of tribute for first responders, which, as the son of a now retired firefighter, I think is a very, very good thing. Now, he said that he is back working in the private sector after 8 years as lieutenant governor. It should be noted that Dan Forest was the very first Republican lieutenant governor to win re-election, right? And then now he's going into business consulting work. He used to be an architect before he was lieutenant governor. Now he's into more business consulting work. Okay, so finally, we have one more item of business, and Billy Miller decided to name some assistant sergeant of arms because the convention hall is just this ridiculous trapezoid shape. It's crazy. My delegation of Guilford County is sitting, there's like a wall right in front of us, and then way off over there somewhere, we can see a little bit of Billy Miller's head, just a little tiny slice. Usually we have to turn this way and watch a TV screen monitor set. It's just it's a terrible venue. But I do like how convenient it is with the hotel and the restaurants. That's a good thing, at least. But after that, we dismissed at 5:02 p.m. And that was like the earliest we've ever dismissed for a business session that I can remember. Usually on Fridays, it's like at least 6:30, sometimes even 7 o'clock when we dismiss. So it's interesting, though. Today we did credentials, rules, and then after rules, we did platform. Usually in years past, it's been credentials, rules, plan of organization, and then platform. But this year is a little bit different. I'm hoping that tomorrow morning they'll get to the plan of organization, because there's a huge controversial change that's been opposed by Catherine Whiteford, president of the Young Republicans. I also strongly oppose it too. Hopefully they'll get to that very quickly tomorrow morning. Hopefully we'll have plenty of time to talk about the plan of organization. Resolutions, yeah, that's one of those things. Nice if we get to it, but if we don't, it's not the end of the world. But the plan of organization is very important. So, well, that's going to do it for my broadcast tonight, and I will see you all again tomorrow. Bye-bye.